Today I am making homemade poutines. And when I say poutines, I don't mean the Quebec poutines that are made with fries and cheese and gravy. Now don't get me wrong, love those as well. But what I am making today is Acadian poutines. So the ones that are made with potatoes and meat. And now the reason why I'm standing at my door is because I'm not doing this alone. I am engaging the help of my mom and dad because basically I'm not really quite sure how to do these by myself. So I'm going to go at my mom and dad's and learn how to do them our way. So the reason why I say it like that is because there are many variations of how people make their poutines, and everybody is very loyal to the way that they make them. So for example, just a small example, when it comes to the meat that my mom and dad put in their poutines, it's made with a salted pork. If I look at my husband's side of the family, they put more like a fresh pork, like a pork roast cut up with onions inside. We do not put onions, we do not use fresh meat, and everybody is very loyal, like I said, to the way we make our poutines. Now, if you're interested in learning how we do them, come along with me to my mom and dad's so I can show you how my side of the family makes poutine rapée. So Acadian poutines. Let's get going. In my area, poutines are a holiday tradition. Some make them for Christmas, some make them for New Year's. In my family, our tradition is to make them more towards Christmas. The first step in making poutines is peeling the potatoes. The best ones to use are russets, but you can use whatever you have on hand. We're peeling somewhere around 50 pounds, but we didn't weigh or measure. We do this the night before, so it's less work to do the next day. Once peeled, we wash them well and then soak them in cold water to avoid them from turning brown. And then we store them in a large pot with enough water to cover the potatoes. They keep very well like this overnight. Poutines are made by combining grated raw potatoes with cooked potatoes. The ratio that we use is 1/3 cooked to 2/3 raw. Some people do half and half. Nothing is really measured, it's all approximates. As you can see in this smaller pot here, my mother got ahead of the game this morning and had the potatoes cooked, mashed, and cooled by the time I got there. So as you can see, there are 2 large pots waiting to be grated and a much smaller pot with the cooked potatoes. Now time to grate the potatoes. This can be done by hand with a hand grater. As you can see, the one that I have here was made by poking metal parts with nails. Doing this by hand if you are making a large quantity is time consuming and tiring on the arms, not to mention the risk of grating your hands. There's also electric graters that can be made especially for this. These come in different shapes and sizes. My mother has a grater attachment on the food processor that works really well. Keep in mind that the attachment for grating potatoes is much finer than the attachment for shredding things like cheese or carrots. To keep the grated potatoes from getting dark, we add a total of 1/4 cup of vinegar to the grated potato mixture. Not 1/4 cup in each batch, it's 1/4 cup in total. So just to give you an idea, if you have a look, this is what the grated potatoes looks like, the consistency of it, before we squeeze out the liquid. As my mother and father are grating the potatoes, I was in charge of removing the liquid. Now this is a little bit of a tricky part because you have to remove enough liquid but not too much. If you remove too much liquid, you could have a tough poutine, but not enough could result in them falling apart while cooking. Removing the liquid can be done by squeezing by hand. I've also seen community centers that make hundreds of poutines to sell. They will purchase a washing machine used only to make poutines, and then they use the spin cycle to extract the liquids. I am using a bucket that is made to squeeze the liquid out of mops. Of course, this bucket is only used for poutines and nothing else. I pour the grated potatoes in a bag made for this purpose. A pillowcase works really well also. And then I squeeze as much of the liquid out as I can with the bucket. I will also try to remove some of the liquid by hand, and then finally back to the bucket for one more final squeeze to remove the rest. This is what it looks like once most of the liquid has been removed from the potatoes. Now, if you remember the 2 large pots of potatoes we needed to grate, this is how much we had left once most of the liquid was removed. You also now want to prepare your pots for cooking the poutines, so you're going to prepare 2 large pots, or depending on how many you have, and start your water boiling. You don't want to overcrowd your poutines in the pot. This could cause them to break. It's now time to mix the cooked potatoes with the raw potatoes. As we are mixing, you may notice us removing some bits from the mixture. When you use the food processor, it sometimes leaves little pieces of potatoes that are ungrated, and that's all we were doing, was removing that from the mixture. And this is also when you want to start adding your salt. When all was said and done, we added probably somewhere around 5 to 6 tablespoons of salt in the potato mixture. Just be sure to add your salt really gradually. Start with 2 to 3 tablespoons and taste and increase if you need to. You don't want to oversalt. Mixing everything together takes a little bit of time, but you just want to make sure to do a good job because you want everything to be really well incorporated. Then you taste it, right? I don't think it's salted enough.
Not enough.
Once everything was well combined, it's now time to shape. My mom is a genius. All the meat is diced finely and prepared the night before. My mother then measures out 1/3 cup portions of meat that goes inside of each poutine. That way you're sure that each poutine has the right amount of meat. There's nothing worse than eating a poutine that has barely any meat inside. And as I've already mentioned, we use a salted pork for this. To shape, you're going to grab a portion of potato, flatten it out, making a well in the middle, and then you scoop your meat inside. You're going to work the potatoes around the meat and make sure that everything looks really nice and formed so that there's no cracks, everything looks really solid. If there are cracks or it's not well formed, they risk breaking during the cooking process. You can also roll them around on the countertop to seal them even better. Some people actually individually wrap each poutine in a cheesecloth to prevent them from breaking while cooking. We do not do this, and we don't have too many casualties. They usually stay pretty well together. We ended up making 30, and now it's time to cook them. The poutines must be gently added to the pots one by one, and always ensuring that the water is boiling. It must not stop boiling. This is why, if you are making enough, having 2 pots allow you to alternate and helps keep the water boiling after each addition.
Yeah.
Once they are all added inside the pots, they need to boil on a very low simmer for somewhere around 2 hours. They could break if they're boiling too hard. You will know when they are done when they sink. If you look at these 2 pots, one is ready, they have sunk, while the second pot, they still look like they're floating on top of the pot. We very carefully remove this from the pot. Now I like my poutines with a lot of juice in it, so I always go back for some extra juice. Now this is where I deviate from the norm a little bit, because most people eat their poutines with either brown sugar or white sugar. I'm not a sugar kind of person. I eat my poutines with salt and pepper. Even if the poutines are perfectly salted, I still have to add that little pinch of salt extra to my poutines. And this is where I maybe deviate from the norm. Most people like it with sugar, but I find it's too sweet. So I'm going to add my salt and pepper. But let's cut into it first to see how perfect this looks inside. I also like a fresh poutine. It's nice and soft. I find the older they get, they get a little bit harder, a little bit more firm. And see how they're perfectly packed with that beautiful salted pork. Perfect. And just like that, beautiful, and I'm sure delicious because I haven't tasted it yet, poutine rapée, my family style. Delicious. I hope you enjoy my video. I hope you enjoy my content. If you do, give it a big thumbs up. Don't be shy, subscribe, and be sure to check back again soon to see what other content I will have coming out.